Some of the footage that I've been watching is pretty scary, I have to say. I think it was hundreds and hundreds of white men beating up a black man yesterday. There's been stabbings on trains, refugee centres having Molotov cocktails thrown at them. This all began, of course, out of this event in Southport where 3 young girls were killed by an attacker who was wrongfully called a migrant. Can you talk about the disinformation campaign that began from that, how it spread, and whether or not the mainstream media had anything to do with it?
Well, what we saw was a child, a 17-year-old, who has allegedly stabbed and killed 3 little girls in Southport. And the law in this country says that you can't name children who have been alleged to be perpetrators of crimes. So in the vacuum from not naming that child came an online social media campaign that was started perhaps from abroad and perhaps from the far right within the UK or within Europe. Some people are alleging it's coming also from other countries like Russia, with a disinformation campaign. And that campaign really took traction. And we have to see this not as just a one-off event, but this has been bristling and burning since the discussions about whether the UK should leave the EU, the anti-immigrant and xenophobic campaigns that were being waged to try and push people to vote to leave the European Union. And they have really taken hold in recent years, particularly since COVID-19, and the kind of campaigns that we saw since then against immigrants. And let's be clear, no immigrants are illegal. People cannot be illegal. There may be unlawful immigrants, there may be refugees, but any attempt to kill them is attempted murder because these are human beings and they have every right to live just like every resident in this country.
Can you talk a little bit about the atmosphere in the UK right now, especially for people of colour or ethnic minorities who are dealing, quite personally with what's happening perhaps on the streets? What measures, if any, are in place to try and protect them?
Well, like I say, it is a very small but very vocal and quite violent minority who have taken to the streets in many cities and towns across the country. And that has caused a situation of fear and intimidation and violence where people feel unable to leave their houses, particularly people of colour, people of faith groups or who might be perceived to be of faith groups, whether they are Muslim or Hindu, Sikh or Jewish, around the country. The police have, of course, stepped in, and there may well be measures taken to bring in the army as well if needed. The courts are now going to be sitting around the clock. Many hundreds of people have already been arrested, some of whom have been arrested from within their houses because the CCTV has shown exactly who these instigators are. And the hope is that the violence will be quelled. But also at the root of this, we need to have moderate and temperate discussions about the key issues about how to handle immigration in a country where there is plenty of room for refugees and asylum seekers, but we need to integrate people better without a feeling of fear and xenophobia that's taken hold in a small minority across the country.
All right, Rosa Freedman, we'll leave it there. Really appreciate your time today.